Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and I was always told how to voice radio, so today I am going to hopefully bring some love to one of the, as far as I can see, lesser loved Pokemon of the modern era. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Carbink. And Carbink, he's not had a lot of love so far in the Pokemon trading card game. And I've never found anyone, and I mean anyone, who has come up to me and said, you know what? My favourite Pokemon, Carbink. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to make Carbink your favourite Pokemon today. What I am saying is he is getting a bit of love in the Pokemon trading card game with the new set, Fates Collide, and I am hoping to show a little bit of that love in this here video. Now, we did have a couple of Fairy-type Carbinks released previously. We had a Fairy-type Carbink in Flashfire, which was moderately interesting. Wonder Blast for free energy did 40 damage, plus 20 more for each Fairy energy attached to Carbink, which I suppose could do a lot if you really piled energy onto him. Then we came along with Roaring Skies, and we had the Dual Armor Carbink, who had an interesting ability, Dual Armor, and as long as he was on your bench, you could prevent any damage done to him by attacks from you or your opponent, but the attack was kind of garbage. So now we've got the new set, Fates Collide, and Carbink, ladies and gentlemen, Carbink is back. Now let's start off with the lesser played but rarer Carbink. This is the Energy Keeper Carbink. Now, interestingly enough, this is rare, and it's okay. It's okay. The ability Energy Keeper means that all basic energy attached to all of your basic Pokemon cannot be discarded basically by anything. Cannot be discarded by effects of attacks. Cannot be discarded by effects of abilities, think something like a Crawdaunt. And cannot be discarded by trainer cards, think things like Crushing Hammer and Team Flare Grunt. Now, this does provide no defense to your special energy, but it means that your basic energy are safe. This is going to be a one-off in most decks, but this is not the exciting Carbink. The exciting Carbink is actually a common, and this is the Carbink from Fates Collide with Safeguard. Now, Safeguard is not a new ability. We've seen it on Pokemon like Suicune before, but it means that all effects of attacks, including damage, do nothing to Carbink, as long as they're done by a Pokémon EX. To put it in a simpler way, he gets immunity from Pokémon EX. And that, ladies and gentlemen, pretty gosh darned exciting. But then again, we look at Carbink and we go, hang on a second, one fighting, one colourless, 40 damage. How good really is this? How much play is it going to see? And the answer is, on its own, probably very, very little. But Carbink has a break. And that's what we are excited about, ladies and gentlemen, because Carbink Break has the attack Diamond Gift. Now, for newer players, a break is a further evolution stage of a Pokemon. So it's technically a break evolution, but we treat it like a stage 1. You put Carbink down, the next turn you can evolve him into Carbink Break. And he has Diamond Gift. For 1 fighting energy, you do 20 damage. 20 damage is meh. It's fine, it's not particularly great. But the effect of the attack says that you can attach 2 energy from your discard pile to one of your fighting Pokemon. And it says energy cards, ladies and gentlemen. It does not say basic energy cards. That means that yes, you can use the whole fighting energy, but you can also use things like, and for fighting Pokemon, the other 2 we're really going to be looking at are double colourless energy and strong energy. They are the 2 that we are really, really thinking about here. They are the 2 that excite us, as well, of course, as the basic fighting energy. Now, ladies and gentlemen, now we're looking at Carbink seeing quite a lot of play. You get the Safeguard Carbink. You evolve him up to a Carbink Break, and then all of a sudden, ladies and gentlemen, all of a sudden you have got an engine that you can use to attach a lot of energy very, very fast indeed. Something else I should point out, or 2 other things which we should point out at this stage. You can use the supporter card Wally to allow you to evolve Carbink into Carbink Break on the first turn of the game. Again, Carbink Break is not a stage 1, but you can evolve him in the same way as you could to a stage 1, using Wally on the very first turn of the game. You can use the card Battle Compressor to discard any of your energy in your deck to your discard pile, so that they can then be attached with Carbink. And of course, your opponent can use Hex Maniac to make sure that they can turn off that Safeguard ability so that Pokémon EX can KO Carbink Break. Remember that Break Pokémon keep the abilities and attacks of the standard Pokémon. So you can use Carbink Break, can have Safeguard, but your opponent can use Hex Maniac or anything like Garbodor, for instance, to turn off this ability. But as I've said on my podcast, PTCG Radio, and on these videos on a number of occasions, if your opponent is using their supporter for the turn just to try and slow you down or to counter what you're doing, that is excellent. They might want to use something like a Professor Sycamore to set up while they can't. The other card I suppose we should mention briefly with Carbink is Corinna, a really nice fighting-centered support card which will allow you to search for any item and for a fighting Pokemon, like Carbink or Carbink Break. Now I talked about Carbink in a bit of detail in my Zygarde deck, or my Zygarde video, I should say, the one where I talked about Zygarde and how you use him and how he can win on turn 1. That video was really more focused on Regirock and Zygarde, but I thought it was, shall we say, prudent to just have a quick mention here. Speaking of, now we're going to move into Pokemon you should use with Carbink, and we'll start with Zygarde. And again, I don't intend taking a huge look at Zygarde at this stage. We've done a video about donking with Zygarde, winning on the first turn of the game, but we've got 3 attacks with Zygarde EX. Landsrath for 100 damage is what we are going to be talking about. And as I said in my previous video, Muscle Band adds 20 damage, Strong Energy adds 20 damage, Fighting Stadium adds 20 damage when you're taking on an EX, and Regirock EX adds 10 damage to all of your attacks. So as well as using Carbink to accelerate, we can add all of this damage. Now, of course, we're going to be looking at these as we carry on through this video, but remember, I have done a video about donking using Zygarde and Regirock, so do remember that this video is more about Carbink. We are giving love to Carbink. Now, there are a couple of other Zygardes you may wish to have a think about. The, as I like to call it, Dog Zygarde will allow you for free energy to do 70 damage, and any Dark or Fairy Pokemon cannot attack during your opponent's next turn. When I say any, I mean any that were hit by this attack. Obviously, your opponent could bring a different one active. Now, the one thing we need to think of here is this is a situational Pokemon at best. You can use Zygarde to get those free energy on very, very quickly, but it is a situational Pokemon at best, ladies and gentlemen. If you're really worried about Dark or Fairy decks, then this can help to provide a little bit of a barrier to that, although it should be pointed out that most Dark Pokemon are in fact weak to fighting, although you could use something like a Baby Yveltal, and Zygarde, this one would be quite good against Baby Yveltal, stop it attacking the following turn. If there's a lot of Fairy in your local metagame, if you're used to playing against Fairy in tournaments and you want a way to stop them, this could be a way to do so. As I like to call it, the Slug Zygarde has the attack Geostrike, 120 damage and 10 to each of your benched Pokemon. Not particularly great, but it is a non-EX Pokemon, so I don't know, maybe you could take advantage of it. One thing I do like a lot is this attack Rumble, 30 damage, and it stops your opponent retreating. A lot of the times people will put Pokemon like Hooper EX on their bench and then try and use a Floatstone to give it free retreat. So you can sometimes buy yourself a few turns by using a Lysander to bring that Hooper into the active and then using Rumble to keep it in the active so it cannot retreat. Or a free retreater like a Hawlucha. A lot of the time people don't want to play switching cards if they play Hawlucha. I'll just free retreat, or at least they'll play fewer switching cards. Well, Zygarde's Rumble can stop it. I don't love those non-EX Zygarde, they are options. One card I do quite like, as we are using this Zygarde, or this Carbink I should say, to get him up and going. One card I am a big fan of is Lucario EX. Now, Lucario EX is very similar to Zygarde EX in that he has free attacks for 1, 2 or 3 energy that will increase as we go up in terms of damage and funness. The real reason you might consider this over something like a Zygarde EX is because you can You can spread your weaknesses, diversify your risk, we might say in a business context. Zygarde EX is weak to grass, Lucario EX is weak to psychic, so you can play a combination of both and hedge your bets against weakness. It should also be mentioned that Corkscrew Smash for 2 energy allows you to draw until you've got 6 cards in your hand, so you can use Carbink to put 2 energy onto Lucario, and then Corkscrew Smash to make sure that you have got a handful of cards to use the following turn. And it should be pointed out again, and I know we've kind of said this, but I really do want to push how the combination of Carbink Break and Battle Compressor will allow you to get your strong energy on the board very, very quickly. Now, it's going to take quite a lot to do so, but if you can hit the turn 1 Wally Battle Compressor, then you can attach 2 strong energy essentially from your deck to one of your bench Pokemon with your first attack of the game, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is frankly spectacular. Now, they're the big heavy-hitting EXs, and I should point out, if I haven't made it clear enough already, I am not looking to provide an exhaustive list of every single fighting Pokemon. I am talking about Carbink Break and the Pokemon that should be a little bit slow to set up, but you can speed up their setup in terms of attaching energy using Carbink Break and turn these Pokemon from meh into ooh. And one of my favourites, and if you've been watching my videos on this channel lately, ladies and gentlemen, you will note he is a favourite. I haven't been able to get him working in the standard format up to now, but I like my chances going forward. It's Regirock, the promo Regirock. Now, I've already made a video about him as well, so I won't go into too much detail, but we have this combination of Omega Barrier and Focus Sash. Focus Sash means you can't be one-hit KO'd. Omega Barrier means that things like Xerosic or Startling Megaphone that would get rid of that Focus Sash no longer can. The problem is trying to attach 4 energy to Regirock is awfully slow. It makes Regirock far too slow. Well, Carbink Break, especially with that safeguard ability giving immunity from EXs, can make this Regirock fast enough to actually be able to compete. 4 energy can be attached in 2 turns, not including your attachment for the turn. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are rolling. You can even use Carbink Break to make sure you get all 4 strong energy on there nice and quickly. Because, not unlike the other Carbink, Regirock's Omega Barrier means that you can't even have things like Enhanced Hammer or Xerosic to get rid of these. The other Carbink only protects your basic energy. Regirock protects all of his energy, only from trainer cards, not from things like Crawdaunt. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen? Crawdaunt doesn't see much play, and Xerosic does. You use Carbink to get 4 strong energy onto Regirock. You're doing Stone Edge for 160, even if you flip a Tails. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are rolling. I like the combination of Carbink and Regirock. Now, the next Pokemon I want to talk about is one that's had some potential for a little while. When we had the first lot of ancient traits, there was this ancient trait, Omega Barrage, which allowed you to attack twice per turn. The problem is, none of them were particularly good. I was quite the fan of Excadrill, played it at a league challenge, did fairly well, but it was never all that competitive. And when I tried playing Excadrill, people would tell me, Ross, you're wrong. You need to play, wait for it, Medicham. And now we have a good plan here. Now, the reason I liked Excadrill was he can attack twice per turn. The first attack, you can get energy on him, and then you can attack. And if you've already got the energy, you can attack twice. The thing I didn't like about Medicham was that he had to have 2 energy attachments. Well, that's no longer the case. Carbink Break can put 2 energy on him straight away, and can put 2 strong energy on him. Now, 30 damage for 2 energy does not seem particularly good until you realise that if they're both strong energy, we're now up to 70 damage. You stick a Muscle Band on him, we're now up to 90 damage. You stick 4 Regirock on the bench, we're now up to 130 damage. You stick something like, I don't know, a Fighting Stadium in play, we're now up to 150 damage. And let's not forget you can do that twice. This means you are essentially one-hit KOing any Mega EX, and it means that you are getting 2 KOs on non-EX decks. You come across something like a Vespiquen, for argument's sake. You knock out the first one with your first Yoga Kick, another one has to go active, and you knock out a second one with your second Yoga Kick. There is a lot of potential with Medicham, and I mean a lot of potential. Now, it is a stage 1, which can be a pain, but remember we've got this whole Wally card I told you about before that allows you to evolve straight up. And you could even put a Focus Sash on Medicham, and then with 1 potion to heal 30 damage, you could also then use Calm Mind twice to completely heal Medicham, forcing your opponent to have something like a Zerosic or a Startling Megaphone in order to essentially ever get a KO. It can be a good way to buy yourself a little bit of time. But the fact that you can 2-hit KO, but in 1 turn, Mega Pokemon, while 1-hit KOing 2 non-EX Pokemon, really makes me think that Medicham has a chance here. Is it going to be amazing and successful? I don't know. Is it going to be a little bit slow because it's a stage 1? Again, it is a question to which I would dearly love the answer. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen? This sounds like the kind of answer I can go and get myself. And this makes me pretty gosh darned happy. So yeah, Medicham, quite good. The last Pokemon I want to talk about in terms of standard is actually Regirock EX. Now, Regirock EX is one of these, you're going to be playing it anyway, but for his ability Regipower. But you can actually use Bedrock Press. Now, 100 damage, it's fine for free energy. It's usually far too expensive to use, but Carbink Break allows us to use it at a reasonable cost. Now, during your opponent's next turn, any damage done to Reggie is reduced by 20, giving him an effective HP of 120. 200. And, of course, you could then maybe play something like a hard charm to give him a HP of 220 while doing 100 damage. Now, Regirock does not add damage to himself or other Regirocks, so you would only be able to use Strong Energy, Muscle Band, Fighting Stadium, etc. to add damage. But still, he can be a nice situational attacker. Is he amazing? No, not by any stretch of the imagination. But you're probably going to be playing Regirock EX in these decks anyway that involve these fighting Pokemon. So why not? In terms of the expanded format, where we move from X and Y onwards to Black and White onwards, the only one I really want to be talking about here is Landorus EX. Now, Landorus EX has always been used for his first attack, and the reason, quite simply, is that his first attack is very, very efficient. 30 to the active, 30 to one bench Pokemon. And we talked in our donking video, again there is a link to that in the description of this video, we talked in the donking video about Hammerhead and how useful that can be with a whole bunch of Regirocks, etc. But here we're talking about Carbink Break and attaching extra energy, so here I'm thinking Land's Judgment. You can discard all the fighting energy attached to him, you do 150 damage. Couple of strong energy goes up to 190. 1 strong energy and a muscle band goes up to 190. You see where I'm going with this. This very easily one-hit KOs EXs. To be perfectly honest, ladies and gentlemen, you don't even need Regirock here. You could even try a little trick where you put some random non-fighting energy into your deck. I don't know, a water energy, for instance. And then you can discard it with Battle Compressor. And then with Carbink, you can put a strong and a water onto Landorus, so that you only have to discard and reattach 2 energy to do Land's Judgment, rather than getting rid of all 3. In expanded decks, Landorus EX is going to be doing a lot of damage very quickly using Carbink Break, and you have the added bonus that you don't need to fill up your bench with Regirock EXs in order to do this. Landorus is just plain good. And actually, we're talking about hedging our bets and spreading our risk in terms of weaknesses. Well, Zygarde is weak to Grass, Lucario is weak to Psychic, and Landorus is actually weak to Water. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, you can be covering 3 different weaknesses in terms of your own weaknesses if you include Landorus as well. Now, just at the end of this video, I'm going to give you one little extra Pokemon, and this is a pet project for me rather than a recommendation for Pokemon you should be running straight out and using in these kind of decks, and that is Delphox from Breakpoint. Now, I am fully aware that Delphox is not particularly good. What I am saying is that Psyshock for free energy does 20 damage times the amount of energy attached to all Pokemon in play. Carbink Break allows you to put more energy into play. Now, Carbink only allows you to attach to fighting Pokemon, so you cannot be attaching to Delphox. And you're going to be wanting to play strong energy with Carbink, and Delphox can't use strong energy, and then it gets very, very awkward and complicated. I don't think it's going to work, but it's certainly a pet project on which I'm going to be working, and I thought it was just a fun little idea to chuck in at the end of this video. So you know the deal, ladies and gentlemen. There is a comment section. I strongly suggest you get over there and have a little bit of fun. How do you think Carbink Break should be used? Are there any Pokemon that can take advantage of Carbink Break that I have cruelly neglected? Remember, ladies and gentlemen, this was not supposed to be an exhaustive list, but stick it down there in the comments. Maybe you like Carbink Break and you just want to put a little comment in the comment section along the lines of #Carbink_love. I don't know. Could be fun. Click that like button. It will make me happy. And subscribe if you haven't, and get a friend subscribe if you have. And don't forget to check out my other videos as well. I am particularly proud of my top 10 animals that should be Pokemon video. It's been slow off the ground in terms of views. Watch it, ladies and gentlemen. Have some fun. Until next time, I am going to be running away. Although if you do have any suggestions for other cards you'd like me to look at, like I have for Carbink Break, comment section, you know the deal. The most important thing, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.